Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast.
Wow.
You got enough coffee?
Presented by
Starting off
SFJ4x4.com. Gracious. You know what? Maybe I do need some more coffee. I don't know. I some more talking points. I don't know. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, joined in the SFJ 4x4 studios, Grandma's Couch, the Jeep couches, by
Jeff Shermani
the producer.
and
And Scott Brown, the mad scientist.
With just incredible enthusiasm
I'm so
that
excited.
he bestows.
so much
I
adrenaline.
actually am
A
excited.
gelling. He's gelling.
So anyways, to start off, Darla is the first on. So good morning, Darla.
Darla's got first.
Followed by Amy, your wife over there. So there you go.
Good morning,
Scott's wife's in there saying good morning. Good morning, everyone who is listening in. This is MLK Jr. Day, and so it is a very important one as far as taking a moment to both appreciate how far we've come as a Western society, but also how much work we have to do going further. And so,
And Chuck's in the comments saying it's Bantam Day
yeah, registration is open for Jeep stuff
for
right?
about 5 more minutes. Then it's sold
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
sold out, right? So we hope that you either have the day off as a day of potential remembrance, or to do something positive with yourself, or that you have scheduled a meeting to join us at this time. It's
We support you either way.
we support you either way. Where we are, it's a balmy 7 degrees.
That's 6 last I saw.
Feels like -6 according to the weather. So
is that so?
yeah, the wind chill's that cold right now.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't. You know what? My wife and I worked outside for the weekend, and I've really.
It's set into his head. So
Were
he
you wearing
thinks
Eskimo suits?
I've gained. My wife had 6 layers on.
Close
6.
enough.
You know what? And she moved like a marshmallow person. It was adorable. But we worked on our tiny house build. It was actually very rewarding. But I'm also a self-deprecating individual, so whatever, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So
Still has all of his fingers and toes so far.
you know what? I'll be honest with you. I was actually really concerned about this here couple fingertips on the middle and the ring finger of my right hand. I still have a little bit of you tap on them, and
Nerve damage?
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself,
It's not good.
I got home from working outside and I had very thin gloves on while I was working yesterday, just because I'm handling. We were actually doing vinyl siding. If everybody was really concerned, in the single digits and the teens, we were doing vinyl siding.
You know what you shouldn't do in
For
that
those that
temperature?
couldn't see, mad scientist was shaking his head.
Here's the thing.
I
I'm
would be
going
insulating right now.
Folks, we are going to talk about Jeep stuff today, just so you're aware, right? But I want to talk about the little nuts and bolts that do make us uniquely us. I think it's valuable for all of our listeners at home to understand that our siding is 12 and a half feet, so 12 feet 6 inches. Okay, is the nominal cut of it, with 9 1/4 height.
Yep.
Okay. It's a double 4 Dutch lap. And so that is what our dimensional vinyl is supposed to be. So my reservation was that that somehow I was going to, be working with this vinyl, and it was going to be so constricted from the temperature that vinyl, what my wife and I were reading yesterday morning, is that it can constrict or expand up to 5/8 of an inch.
Correct.
Given any,
Especially
The
dark,
plus
blue
side for
sliding.
you is that you're putting it on at the coldest possible temperatures, so you know how small it's going to be.
correct.
So now you just need to make sure you leave
I'm
enough
stretching
gap.
it a little bit to try and make it so that when it does expand, that it's actually going to be good in the gappage, right?
Well,
so,
the left to right is where you really have to worry.
So the left to right, okay? So right now in the cold, it is 12 feet. It is 12 feet and 5 13/16, basically.
Huh.
So it has only at its smallest constricted about less than a quarter inch or so.
Yeah.
So my wife and I are measuring off of everything, going our left to rights and our ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, and the vinyl did not constrict. And all I can think is that thanks to talking to folks here inside the business, a friend of ours, Kevin, outside the business, and then the place where I bought the vinyl, we believe we bought what we believe is one of the better grades that we could purchase in the market that we live in at this time.
What thickness did you go with?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't tell you the slightest. I can tell you that of the small independent lumber company that we bought ours from, they had 3 options. This was the highest grade out of the 3. I couldn't tell you what thickness it is or not, but it was incredibly pliable yesterday, and obviously it had only shrunk around an eighth at
So I wonder what in July and 95-degree temperatures it will expand to.
I am concerned. I am concerned.
Yeah. But if you're leaving your gaps on your side channels and stuff, it should allow for that.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'd much rather have it get a little tight when it gets really hot than leave gaps in the winter.
Jeff, I mean, with absolutely no experience, for our listeners at home going, my wife and I we have absolutely no business doing what we're doing. We are doing it in the same manner and fashion that we support DIYers who jump into their, off-road vehicles. Just kind of learn, research, talk, consult professionals when appropriate, bring in a professional, do a small task, whatever, Because like I said, our roof was done by a professional because snow load and rafters and all that
Yeah, I
kind of
should have
stuff.
made that choice.
But so I'm trying to approach the house the same way that we would encourage our DIYers to approach us and their project with their Jeep. We can do as much or as little as you would like us to. With that said, having absolutely no idea what we're doing, I really am hopeful that you are right. Because I think I'm doing the best I can do. Now, it's taken us, 2 months to side this house. So it's not like we're racing through and things are getting overhammered.
My wife just said in the comments, your siding's going to be done before ours, and we started ours 4 years ago. There's a small section of the house that's left to do.
Really?
That's over the metal roof.
Oh, okay.
And it's just that right angle on it you cannot get traction. There's no good mounting points to put a harness, so it just hasn't gotten done.
Huh.
It's like the peak of my house isn't painted.
Yeah.
I've
I
been
went
to
up
your
to
house.
where I was scared and I stopped.
I've been to your house. I've been to both of your houses a couple times. I couldn't tell you whether your house was painted or your house was sided.
I can tell you where it's not painted.
Well, that's fine. We are the biggest critics of our own things that we do.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is, as long as it's not harming, the house or the space.
It's fine.
Well, I could tell you
It's more ideal to always have it painted or sided. I
as a
agree.
neutral individual who's been to both of your houses, I am unaffected by anything that you may or may not have done to this point. So,
See, Kristen, we can go another 5 years, so we'll be fine.
I support that. I support that. You're good.
I tell you one
You're
thing,
good.
Jeff's definitely not doing it in today's weather.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, especially on a metal roof. I mean, in the cold with the
That's
metal
fine.
roof, it is.
No way. No
even
dice on
even
that
in
one.
the heat of summer, the hottest days, I tried going up there and with good shoes, and I was still sliding down the roof.
Really?
You guys
So-
zip tie some suction cups to you.
Yeah, yeah. It was. And I even at one point I put magnets up there and tried to use those. The magnets just slid down it. I'm like, this is not working.
Oh my God. Magnets.
So you take a rope and you throw over it to tie it off to the truck and just have.
I
Kristen
literally told
drag
her
you
we were
up
going to do
there.
that. I literally said we were going to end up doing that.
So when I used
The other thing I did is I ended up putting little step tread. I had bought it for
Yeah.
the kids' bunk beds.
Yeah.
And I cut pieces of it and created a ladder system
On the
going
roof.
up along where I need to side.
Yeah.
And even that wasn't enough traction to keep me feeling safe.
Really?
I was just sliding off of those even.
What's
I'm
your
like, this-
pitch? Do you know what the pitch is?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Okay. But it's obviously got to be a pretty good pitch then.
Yeah. The problem, the reason I don't know is because I have 3 different pitches in my house, so
Oh,
I
okay.
can never remember what they are now.
So just for funsies, I totally did harness off to the big red truck years ago when we had our property down in Pennsylvania and we were putting Christmas lights up. Those of you who watch the YouTube videos prior know that I have climbing experience in my past life, and I absolutely had my harness on, harnessed over to the truck, exactly what you guys were saying, in order to, because I was putting them up in the winter with the ice.
I want to
snow.
see you do that on the new house for your Christmas lights specifically.
He just backs the truck up to it, put a ladder in the bed, and you're good.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So
Not how
and
tall he's building it now.
that's literally what I did.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah. So for our Patreons, and this is what's valuable for those of you. First of all, thank you so much for your continued support. Who are on the Patreons? Obviously, that gives you access to kind of a private social feed. Also gives you access to a Discord page that I know Scott and Jeff are very active on with our other Patreons.
even Davey was active on it
There
recently.
was lots of controversy.
Yep.
over the-
There's a lot of
I'm
controversy.
not talking
going
about
on.
that right now.
Yeah.
What I am going to say
I'm
is,
with you on that.
what I am going to say
Haters.
is that I have posted pictures of the house build on the Patreon page, and just this weekend I shot a small video which will go up on there and show them. But if you haven't seen, that's how I sided the house. Was I took the International with its flatbed,
Oh.
and I backed it up and I put a ladder in the bed of the truck or on the bed of the truck, and that's how I'm doing the
See.
height of it.
See, that's why you need 37s on Enigma.
Do you ever see the
Gain that extra couple inches.
do you ever see the meme of why men
Why
don't live
women
as-
live longer than men?
Yeah, where they got the
Absolutely.
ladder over the stairwell. and
100%.
I feel so much safer when I put a ladder in the bed of my truck.
I see nothing wrong
I
with
honestly, when I first saw that meme, I was like, I've literally done that with ladders. And honestly, in the stairwell, the ladder can't go anywhere. It's locked into the stair.
this. Makes perfect
Yes.
sense to me.
It's perfect.
That's perfectly. It's fine. It is. It is. It's calculated risk. Calculated risk assessment.
Just got to
and-
make sure you cover the truck because nothing sucks more than getting house paint on the truck.
yeah, that's not good. And
Somebody's speaking from experience over
yeah,
there.
right, right. No, it's calculated risk, and quite frankly, as you mentioned in the American Hustle podcast we were talking before, if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not pushing hard enough, where you experience a couple setbacks or a couple failures, then you're not trying hard enough in life.
Absolutely.
And that's a little teaser if folks are not listening to the American Hustle podcast. That is the podcast about what sets us apart as a business, SFJ 4x4 difference, and what are some of those organic thoughts that lead us forward into the future. So you're going to want to tune into that. Jeffrey produces that podcast as well, and it's an excellent leadership, social development, personal development piece. So if it's
And just like leadership, it's a growing podcast.
absolutely, and if you're in the new year and you're wanting to take on a new activity to see about improving yourself, that's a great one to add to your playlist. So I know we have not addressed all the comments. I know there's stuff coming in, and obviously any updates from you guys as well. Before we get into today's topic, which I should mention is the business of doing good on this MLK Junior Day, and because this is an automotive podcast, we're going to talk about how the automotive industry has positively impacted
I'm a-
humanity.
Blow your guys' minds, but that's fine.
And I think we're going to do our process. We're going to contextualize it, and we're going to talk, about some things that the mad scientist has statistically figured out for us, and we'll make it entertaining for you. So
Yeah. So updates for us is not a whole lot going on. I worked on some more nonprofit things, got more of that work done. Worked on some laser things. I built or designed a paint tray for Kristen's desk for all her acrylic paints. So it holds all the bottles on it. And I gotta say, I've only
with
ever
a laser.
with the laser.
Huh.
I've only ever done things with multiple holes like that with routers or with Forstner bits or whatever before,
Okay.
hole saws, whatever. This was so nice to just tell it to do it and just sit back and let it cut all the holes perfectly.
Huh.
Exactly lined up.
Is this made out of that similar wood that you had the little
Yeah.
piano out
Yep,
of
just
yesterday?
I did it out of it's a basswood plywood.
Okay.
So pretty 1/8 inch thick.
yeah.
But then I had to design all the interlocking fingers for where it would insert so the shelves could hold. So there's 3 shelves in it and 2 trays for pens and paintbrushes. So it turned out really nice, went together pretty well.
I want to know if any of our listeners have a laser at home. I mentioned before, it's so fascinating to have these substantial 3D printers and these lasers. I mean, and again, my kid has like a 3D printer pen. You know what I mean? We can draw just little home stuff. But like these lasers and these printers, I'm talking big stuff that you guys have. Who else is doing this kind of stuff? It's neat.
It is. And
it's really interesting.
And for our listeners, especially the ones that are in Discord harassing us about it, we did talk through some of the game board stuff and are working towards making the SFJ game a reality.
Big shout out to Chip, who found an actual company to box game boards.
Yep. So we're
sent that over. That's wild.
We're looking into that aspect, looking into a few other things. There's a potential that we just box it ourselves using the laser to create the box. So that's an option that we're looking into as well. So we're working on things.
Yeah, interesting. It's such a fascinating hobby, you know, and it's valuable for people to understand that SFJ 4x4 started as a hobby for me, or a hobby business, and then it progressed into a hobby business. So it was first a hobby, then a hobby business. So if you are at home playing with a 3D printer or a laser or wood shop or metal shop or whatever, you can ultimately, who knows what the future holds.
Yeah,
you know?
it's one of those for us. Nobody's expecting to get rich doing it. It is exactly that. It's a hobby. It's for fun. We're not trying to build a big business out of it.
Sure, in your situation, but if you love something enough,
if you want to, you can absolutely pursue that. I mean, there are people in the groups that we follow on Facebook with this that have the same device, and many of them are running multiple of them at this point. Some of them have upgraded to different versions of it. There's CO2 lasers, there's fiber lasers. We have a diode laser. There's different wattages available. There's people that literally have entire shops set up dedicated just to laser work.
And there's an individual that our paths crossed years ago on the show circuit as we were, kind of businesses were coming up off the ground, and he had I think it was a plasma cutter. It was a CNC plasma cutter table. And he was doing the most amazing metal signs for garages.
Yeah.
Granted, a little bit different than what you had, but he got to the point where he was making so much money. He was so busy that, that ultimately he was kind of able to just kind of show up at the shows. He didn't actually have to work very hard. The product sold itself. It was just so interesting. And then all he had to do was load these giant sheets of 4x8 steel and let the machine do its business, maintain the machine, and show up at the show and sell them. It was a great business model. Unfortunately, once you call enough attention to yourself, the mothership businesses want a cut of that pie. A little challenge of society that we live in. And so if he was selling stuff that was branded Jeep or Dodge or GM and Chevy and stuff that was, had some royalty infringement, they came after him for a cut of it.
And that's part of why we're not trying to build anything out of it, is because anything that has been character related or branded related, we've pretty much done either as a gift or just a side deal, kind of,
sure.
Hey, a couple bucks. We're not trying to make any money off of it.
Sure.
Whereas if you wanted to go out and start making production Jeep items, well, now you got to start being aware that eventually they're going to say something to you.
Yep.
Eventually, you may get away with, you may sell 200 pieces before Jeep steps in, or 1,000 pieces, but eventually they will.
Sure. Yep. Mad Scientist?
So
I saw a vintage Schwinn.
You did. I had brought up. So my son has these aspirations of go-kart running around the backyard because we have an acre behind our house, and it's in a very slow process because I don't want to just hand him stuff. I want him to earn it. Problem is he's 10 and he has a 10-year-old's attention span.
Yep.
And a go-kart that we buy is needs a lot of work, a lot of parts.
Right.
So we're multiple Christmases in of parts of, Amy deciding to help him out there and Santa helping him out here and there. So I brought up something after Christmas I was thinking about. I had bought him, it's a 1954 Schwinn Spitfire boys bike as a 24-inch. And I was like, if we don't get off our heinies and get that going, he's going to be bigger than the 24-inch bike will be. So if he has any aspirations of actually riding this bicycle, we probably ought to get that done. And I was thinking, on top of that, this is a much easier project. We're just taking it apart and putting it back together. We're not doing any custom stuff. Like the go-kart at this point, we're adding different bigger tires and wheels and front brakes and a different motor and a different drive, and the axle's been flipped 180. I've had to re-engineer the rear swing arm. Like it's a big project.
It's a project at this point.
So this way we can just take it apart. He can help clean up parts with the sandblast cabinet and understand using tools. We can get the frame blasted and painted or powder coated and put it back together, and he can see the realization of seeing a project through and what the reward is at the end, that he'll have a nice looking bicycle that he and his old man can ride awkwardly old bicycles on the bike trail.
Just for our listeners at home, understand that we are 100% talking about Scott and
Yes.
his awkwardness.
Yeah, because I have a 55 Columbia 26-inch
I
bicycle.
love how excited you guys are with this stuff.
Well, and we have my mom's 1955 Spitfire. I have the receipt that we bought brand new in 55.
Do you know how nice it is for me to just get on my big boy Trek and everything
That's
just
fine.
works and my Shimano gears and everything just flies together?
That's fine.
I can actually I've ridden a bunch of vintage bicycles. I grew up on them,
Yeah,
and I was just like, my new bike, it's just, it's so smooth.
A
It's
lot
so
more
seamless.
comfortable.
It's a lot more comfortable. It's like you driving your JTR.
So I was so excited. I got Amy a vintage girl's bike to go along with our collection. And she's like, yeah, I'll just ride my new full suspension Swin
right.
instead of that. And I was
Right.
like, but we'll look so quaint all riding vintage bicycles, because now Evie can fit my mom's bike. And that was a no-go.
Hold strong, Amy. Hold strong.
I do have a new Diamondback that I haven't ridden in probably 5 years because I've been
Is it
running-
really still new then?
Well, it's hanging up there. It's got no miles on it. I'd rather ride this rusty, slight bent pedal 55 Columbia.
That is so. What is wrong with us? I mean,
don't
I was
know.
looking at something vintage over the weekend as well, and I was like, oh man, I just love that old iron. And but I want all new mechanicals. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I want old iron, the exterior, the clothing.
I've done that.
I know.
Chuck's in the comments saying fat tire bikes are cool again.
They've
Ah, they
gone the
are.
other way, though. They're really fat now.
They're super fat tires.
Yeah.
I think they're cool.
Balloon
and-
tires are cool again, is what I'll say.
Oh my goodness, fat tires are good for us because we live down by the
Yeah.
sandy beach of the Great Lakes. You know,
Yep.
so there's kind of an interesting piece we can do with bicycles on that.
So anyway, we took it out of the shed. He had to stand on the trunk of the Rambler to help get it off because I hung it up with 2 hooks. And he's like, I hope that didn't hurt it for winter or for the springtime. I was like, meh,
That Rambler doesn't owe you anything.
it's fine. So we got it down, we got it tore apart, and now we got to see. I figure one of the times we take stuff over to sandblast, maybe we'll sneak a frame and a fork through, and then we'll see if we paint it or powder coat it. Depends on what level of commitment my 10-year-old has. And other than that, I've been doodling. Actually made a drawing. I'll have to put that up on the Discord for everyone. Well, actually, it's on my Facebook.
I was gonna say you put it up on
I
Facebook.
forgot about that. Anyway, well, I'll do that if you're not on my Facebook and then stuff. Anyway, where I'm going to put the license plate and the third brake light, I'm really concerned about how that's going to look. So I just doodled it to see what I thought and sent it off to a friend of mine that actually does design of vehicles. He went to school for it, and toys and that kind of stuff, very automotive related. And he thought it looked awesome. So I think we're going to progress with that. We just got to decide if the license plate goes on the outside or if it gets recessed in. Part of me wants to recess it just because I can.
And that's what we were talking
But-
about last week as well, right? So
Yeah.
folks who
Still working through that.
yeah,
Well, that was a
folks that-
roll pan. Still thinking about the roll pan.
well, because doesn't the license plate mount on the bumper
No.
previously?
Goes on the license, or the license plate originally went on the taillight. So
That's right. That was hanging out.
Imagine your CJ and how that sticks out like an inch, and how much you catch that on. Imagine this sticking off the side of a car where the fender is separate, and it sticks out there like a big sign.
Yeah, sticks
It's-
out even further. We
It's
talked
way
about that.
worse.
Yeah,
Chip's in the comments saying, "Morning, guys. Just picked up Erin from the airport. She's finally home.
Hey,
That's
good for you,
awesome.
Chip.
Welcome back. She was in California last I heard.
Yeah, it's
so-
a heck of a
family
temperature to
stuff.
come back to from Cali.
Yeah, yeah. Bundle up.
Yeah.
So what What is on the agenda for us then? We are talking about the business of good, right? And the automotive community as a whole can oftentimes get a bad rap historically.
I would say in our lifetimes, the automotive technology and world kind of gets this bad rap of it's a pollutes the earth, it's using up resources, that kind of stuff. That's all what we've kind of gotten shoved down our throats as car people. I guarantee you've heard it.
And
at
additionally,
minimum.
we have the geopolitical. We had the fat cats getting rich during the quote unquote Great Recession, and they took their jets into the congressional hearings in D.C. as opposed to suffering with the workforce that the government was bailing out, and all of that kind of stuff.
So I kind of wanted to go back to the start and see what was the environment back when the car originally came out. What did it do? How was it perceived? And I have some facts for you guys that is going to blow your minds.
Yeah.
And I kind of got to set the stage of what world looked like at that, because we are so removed from what the world looked like in the 1880s and 1900 that
I mean, I gotta say, for us, the 1800 or 1880s is probably a lot like Davy for the 1900s.
Jeffrey.
You're trying to hurt me.
You're trying to shooting bullets this morning, Jeffrey.
Right?
Goodness.
So are we ready for me
Did I tell you what Xander called the 1990s?
No.
Instead of the late 1900s, like everybody's saying online and stuff, he's scrolling through Netflix and he sees a movie and he goes, "Oh, that movie was made in 1997." I'm like, that actually hurts worse than saying late
1997.
right?
Oh, that's cute.
Right here. It hurts me right in the middle of the chest, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. Well, and we live in such a society, and our vehicles, our Jeeps just keep getting better. Our access to the environment, to nature and whatnot, the ability to travel and see humans and speed, it just keeps getting more and more and more. And it's kind of interesting. And those are positive things, you know, versus being isolated or having to travel by, Conestoga wagon and die from scurvy. What was it? We were always dying. Dysentery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oregon Trail games. Big throwback if you really want to feel.
Really showing our age there.
If you really want to talk about 1992.
Right?
So we ready for my
Ready.
facts?
I'm ready. I want to hear your facts.
So in the 19th and 20th centuries, we basically had 27,000 miles of dreadful dirt roads. And the advantage of back then is horses could traverse that easily, whereas things with wheels couldn't.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Horses are cool, though.
And horses were cheap and highly effective uses of energy, which I thought this was interesting. I know nothing about horses.
I think that a lot of horse people right now would argue that they're not anymore.
Correct. Yeah. Because it takes 5 acres of hay and grain per horse a day. But it was 15 to 20% more effective than a coal-fired machine. Again, just going it back, setting the stage for you guys.
Right.
In 1840, in North America, there were 4 million horses employed for farm use and
Agricultural use.
That word.
And so I got to imagine that there's somebody just like Scott sitting in front of a computer nerding out on these statistics as they're doing the math and calculating energy efficiency of a horse versus coal,
right? Versus those coal steam engines. Because, of course, real quick, talking about that period of time, so we're talking in the mid-1800s, we should have steam tractors at that point.
Yes.
Right? And we should have these big,
it's
gnarly...
still coal-fired.
Right, it's a coal-fired...
Because you have to boil the water somehow.
Right, but, of course, these tractors would have been... And they're earlier. I mean, we're not talking to the 1840s, but... because we have trains at that point,
which are still coal-fired steam
Correct.
Engines.
And
same
so
technology.
these tractors and steam rollers, these dozers are massive, inefficient pieces of equipment, producing, by our standards, 6 horsepower, but they're the size of a small house.
Yes.
Right.
And, And comparative, the maneuverability of that versus a horse team.
Correct.
Were night and day.
Totally different things.
So anyway, in the 1840 there was about 18 million inhabitants of our general nation. By 1900, there were 24 million horses to, again, plow fields, pull street trolleys, carriages, city vehicles, and everything else.
So how many acres of maintenance was that?
Shoot, wait, it's 24 million
horses.
horses.
And you said
And
it was 5
It
acres
was
a day?
supposed to be 5 acres a day to let
Yes.
them do their business. That's
No,
a
just to eat.
Just to eat.
that's a lot of
That's a lot of real estate.
That's a lot of real estate. So
In 1900, there was 1 horse per every 3 people.
1 horse for every 3 people in the nation.
Yes.
And we're pushing 120 million acres a day.
Just for feed.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, start to let that process, because we put the food in, we'll get there. Okay.
Something has to happen with the food and
Yes.
the digestive process.
Yes. In 1890, a New Yorker took an average of 297 horse/car rides per person a year.
Okay, 1890.
Yep.
Average New Yorker.
Yes. 297
So-
horse/buggy rides
So just under
Per person.
300 rides
per person.
per year
Per
in New
person.
York
Yes.
per person. And
And
it's
that
a-
was busy in New York at that
and,
time.
and it's valuable for our listeners at home to think about this in a situation that oftentimes, I mean, you might be sitting at home and you might have 5 acres or 10 acres around you right now. But we have to kind of step out of our own mindset and look at, what if I lived in Pittsburgh? What if I lived in New York City? What if I lived in one of these developing urban
Even
environments?
so, if you live on a property with 5 acres or have 5 acres around you, that's only 1 horse,
Potentially, right.
potentially.
Yeah.
And if you've got multiple horses on that 5 acres,
why
now
this-
you're pushing
This
things.
all blew my mind. Today, the average is 100 cab rides. So we actually are traveling by transportation less in New York, is what the statistics say.
Interesting.
Yes. A horse would produce between 20 and 50 pounds.
I want to go. I want to go back to that stat for a second. You're saying 100 cab rides,
Yes.
as in taxi cab,
Yes.
not vehicle rides total.
Correct.
So no, we're traveling way more.
I don't know specifically New York. We have a friend that lives in Cleveland, and we know that his vehicle sits 99.5% of the time
But does he?
in city, and he walks mostly.
But there's a lot of people that do public transportation,
But
like
I've seen
the
the gridlock
buses
that's
and
in New York, and I would say the bigger share of people are probably not driving. They're
Yeah.
probably walking.
It's
or
interesting
taking
to know
public
whether or not we
transportation.
are walking
public
public
pu-
transport.
but public
or-
transports like the metros and the buses all should be counted as part of the.
Totally, but
the
sadly
vehicles.
they only had
Cab
correlation
rides.
from
Ye-
cab rides to buggy and horse rides.
It's I bet you if you went back to like the 1980s and looked at the cabs rides versus today's cab rides, I bet you it'd be significantly more.
Yeah,
I wonder.
more than likely. But sadly, I only have the statistics that this article was giving me.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so a horse would produce between 20 and 50 pounds of manure a day per horse,
That's a lot of doo doo.
and a gallon of other stuff
All right, so 20 to 50 pounds
of manure
of doo doo.
a day per horse.
That's a
day
lot of
per horse.
fertilizing.
So you ready for? At this time, there was an average of 500 horses per square mile.
what
In 1900 in New
per
York,
square mile in
Yes.
New York?
in 1900
in
in New
general.
York, there were 100,000 horses.
Where did all the
So-
doo doo go?
So gridlock has always been an issue in New York, is what I'm
I was
hearing.
going to say, you're talking about gridlock. Gridlock has always been an issue.
Only then, instead of the tailpipe belching at you, other things were.
It was literally belching. The horses were belching.
Are you ready for the number? They produced 2.5 million pounds of manure a day.
That's a how I wonder. That's pound wise. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I wonder what conceptualizing a space.
It's
you know what
being
I mean?
transported out in cart and buggy to other farms
So
and
sadly,
using as
it's
fertilizer.
not part of this article, but I just literally read something about this, and they were talking about the vacant lots that were available. So say if you had a row of houses and then you had an empty lot and then you had another row of horses, It was literally feet deep. They were 5 to 6 feet deep of manure that they were just
Could you
trying to
imagine
shovel.
being at the house next to the open lot and like you come in, you move into this house, and you're like, oh, this great yard to
It's
play
fine.
in next door.
Plug your
And then
nose.
all of a sudden the city, the city cleanup crew
That's-
comes in and moves in
that's that
5 to
fresh-
6 feet.
Fresh country air. So, anyways, Daddy Jeep's in the comments saying, "I'm late. What did I miss? I thought this was a Jeep show, not an equestrian show."
I think we're going to get there. I think
are
we're going to
getting
get there,
there.
Rob. We're talking about the business of good, what the automotive community has done good for us, right?
Yes.
We're
So,
setting the stage.
We just went a little
because
too far back in history.
We're,
We'll
we're-
get there.
We're pretty. It's pretty
Uh,
deep in here right now.
Not
I
as
think
deep
it's
as
really
New York.
important to set the stage because we are so disconnected. We have
That's
no
absolutely right.
idea
No context.
what this was like 100 years ago, 110, 120 years ago. We only know what
I
it
just want
is.
you to know it's actually put closer to 170 years ago. The last time you had mentioned something was about 1850, 1860.
That's fine.
And
Well, we're 1900.
okay, we're at 1900.
1900, so 120
okay,
years ago.
120 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, at this time, gas was a useless waste byproduct for making kerosene for lamps, which
Yes.
is another thing that we don't wrap our head around.
Rockefeller was doing good. Savage is coming on the set. If you cannot, oh boy,
Well, he's tripping
He's
over
tripping on-
over somebody's
on the
collection
set.
of stuff.
what's? Oh, we have a visitor today. We have a visitor. We'll talk about it in a second.
Okay.
We'll talk. Savage came on, looked cute. For those of you,
And he quickly ran away.
and he quickly ran away. Did his phantom on, phantom off stuff.
So the funny part is that so in 1900, and I've been told that people looked as cars as dangerous, unsafe, but this really paints a different picture. I imagine if you're in New York City, you were tickled to offset the horse
The horse
Problem.
byproducts.
to into car because you now didn't have all this filth.
Except for it was change, and people don't like change.
And people don't like change.
You're never gonna be able to get gasoline across the country when you drive.
But how in the world did you haul that much stuff? It blows my mind.
Hauling the manure, hauling
Yes.
the dookie.
And where did it go?
Well, and all the jobs that were dedicated to the guys cleaning that, or
Oh,
guys and
100%.
gals.
Yeah, and
Oh,
sadly,
yeah.
I can. I
yeah,
have
they
some
didn't
other
have
facts.
machines that drove down the streets to clean the streets.
yeah.
There was people out there with shovels.
Shovels.
No, if you
And
if you did,
wheelbarrows.
it was pulled by a horse, which was actually making the problem worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, the tons of manure were pounded and pulverized into a dust, which attracted rodents and flies.
Ooh.
There was an
So New York's always been infested with rodents.
Yes. There was
Right.
ever-present layer of manure that clung to shoes, traveled in the wind, and seeped into the water supply.
Oh dear.
Yummy.
Oh my.
One wild government estimate at the time estimated that 95% of all disease-carrying flies bred in the manure. Writing in the Times in London in 1894, one writer estimated that 50 years, every street in London would be buried under 9 feet of manure.
Wow. So we had a horse problem, just as we have a car problem.
Just wait.
Okay.
Dead horses often clog city streets.
Oh, I wondered about. I was literally just kind of like thinking in my brain, like, I wonder if a horse is like just old or exhausted or has a heart attack and it just falls over. And
I mean, with
dies.
that many horses in one city
That's
alone,
what I'm saying.
yeah, there
right?
had
And
to be.
That's just one city. There's cities building, industrializing all over the world at this point.
In New York City in 1880, 15,000 horses died on the streets, or 41 dead horses a day, which had to be removed.
Wow.
Where do you
That is
put all of
so
those
much worse than the
horses?
current deer problem,
Right?
Or the current dead car problem too. That's what I'm thinking. Like,
right?
You had to have some place to stable 100,000 plus horses that operated within New York and food to feed them.
I'm going to take a quick moment, just a fun fact for society based on what we believe we know about our specific location, that where SFJ 4x4 is physically located was the stables for a hotel. So speaking of that, you know what I mean, is that
It's very fertile soil here.
apparently exceedingly fertile soil.
I just got to go to the comments real quick because we were talking about the horses dying in the streets. Damn Ford horses is what was in the comments from Chuck Lorre.
Makes perfect sense to
Unreliable
me.
even back then.
That's right. Mustang was a crappy thing that literally crappy. Just pun intended.
Right?
Just so we're all on the same page.
So this is the other thing that blew my mind.
Wow, such a good Jeep show.
Right? On per capita basis, 19th century horse-drawn vehicle accident rates were similar to those in the automobile in the 20th century.
Huh.
It says for now you had 2 casualties, possibly, more than likely.
God, the horse is dead. Like literally gonna drag this thing off.
Right?
Maybe that's where. Oh no, what was glue factories were really important.
And they literally talk about the horse cruelty. They were just a transportation. So
They
when
were a
people
tool at
go in
that
and
point.
kick in your car, you're kicking a poor horse.
Yeah,
I can't imagine they were very happy.
yeah, they're very kind to those animals.
I would even go as far as saying people are more respectful to their vehicles than they were to their horses back
More
then.
than
Probably.
likely, sadly. And this is the other thing that really blew my mind, gets us back in the automotive a little bit. EV and ICE, so internal combustion engines, were neck and neck in sales till about 1911. That's when the electric starter became more prevalent and made the demand for a chauffeur less, which is crazy to think. Obviously, there were some people that had their own horses and their own buggies and that kind of stuff. But if you lived in a row house in New York City in 1900, I don't think you had that. So I think you were hiring someone to drive you somewhere.
Right.
And
so
they had to.
when you said chauffeur, you meant chauffeur? I'm sitting here going, what did I miss? What word was he saying? And now I'm understanding.
For those that can't see, I'm giving Jeff a look.
I'm dead. The word was chauffeur. I wasn't sure what he was saying, but I didn't want to call him out.
Jeff has no problem, obviously.
I wasn't going to initially, but then when I realized what he was actually saying, I'm like, nope, we're calling it out.
No, it was the Lyft, the Uber of that time.
Oh,
yes.
So you knew somebody who owned the you knew somebody who owned the horse and buggy. So we're we got to get back on the rails here. So, did you say EV vehicles?
Mm-hmm.
EV is in electric?
vehicles, yes.
So here we are in the early 1900s, and combustion, vehicular, the wheel has been invented again.
Well, obviously they were pulling, the horses had to pull something.
Thank you.
Well played.
Thank you.
So anyways, but the point is, 100 years ago, there was EV.
Yes.
And now we're 100 years fast forwarded,
Yes.
and people are complaining about going to EV.
Yes.
Yeah. There's also
And
really
the only reason with really the change was the fact that we had such poor battery technology 100 years ago, and why the internal combustion engine was not more easy to institute was because you had to go hand crank it to get it started, and that was deemed very dangerous. So that was something that you had to be an expert to know what to do. So that's why you had the word that you said. I'm not even going to say it now.
Chauffeur?
I had someone that was going to maintain the vehicle and start it for you and drive you there, and you just rode there, which we're kind of seeing full circle now with Lyft and Uber and that kind of stuff.
in the rideshare
with
programs.
the rideshare programs.
And
It's something that didn't completely go away, but I can imagine that at that time, they looked at the automobile with a starter as taking their jobs away kind of scenario.
100%. And I think it's valuable to talk about the automotive business doing a business of good, the automotive industry doing good,
Yeah.
in the sense that we did, quite frankly, revolutionize
Yes.
these localized problems, this dense
and that's-
saturation of crappy Mustangs.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to go into this, because we all kind of know it made it easier to travel from place to place and made it suddenly very easily to go from a city urban center to out in
But even in the
farmland.
early
scenario.
stages of the vehicles, it wasn't that you just got in and turned the key. There was a process, and you had to have a
Completely.
skill set to start a vehicle.
But look at that comparative to
What-
the horse, and that's something that we sadly do not have any comprehension for.
Well, and that's just it, though. Back then, the riding a horse was normal. That was
Yes.
easy to learn.
But there was still a big process, and that was what I was trying to show. Is like, we don't think, we just we just imagine a city street with buggies and carriages, and everybody's happy and the horse is happy. That is
We have
not
this very
the case.
nostalgic or romantic view
Yes.
of this
'Cause
horse-drawn,
now-
simple life.
But we're gonna go get in the white carriage in Central Park, and we're gonna ride a
Yes.
romantic thing with 2 horses, and we don't think about all that goes along with that. And that's where.
But even back then, I don't think that they realized the issues were that severe because switching over was more complicated to them.
probably.
Right, because change is hard.
Because change
Which
is hard.
Which is obviously the conversation.
They didn't
with-
understand the convenience of what they're getting into.
Right, and so they went into, but there were naysayers, right?
Yes.
And there
Yeah.
were jobs that were eliminated, from the chauffeurs to the street sweeps
Oh,
to
yeah.
all of that kind of stuff.
a
that were
whole infrastructure of people had to bring. I'm sure it wasn't the same people that were dealing with the hay and the oats and that kind of stuff, bring it in, and the water
right.
that these horses took to then the other people that were taking the manure and other things away. And frankly, it was one of those situations where it was a job that was never done.
Yes.
We look. I remember as a young person getting into the workforce, and they're like, "You want to find something that's never going to go away as an industry." And I'm sure in the 1840s they looked at it as, "Well, you're always going to need somebody to
Are
shovel
you cold
that."
over there?
A little bit.
You seem like you're cold over there. I
Sorry.
could hear the shiver in the
we
voice.
I was gonna say those single digit temps are creeping into
Yeah.
the building, I suppose. But as far as the automotive industry, and we had this feeling as a society, as vehicles came out, they were dangerous, they were cumbersome.
Yeah.
You were not going to be able to get fuel in multiple places. The horse could just stop. You could tie him off at a stream. They could
Yeah.
eat grass. There was a matter
In
of
the more
convenience.
urban or farm type areas, yes, 100%. But in the city center, that is really where.
Well, and so the argument, what you're saying is that ultimately there were actually reservations or problems with that industry, which helped springboard the automotive industry. And the
Yes.
automotive industry creates, it does create different jobs. It creates a different experience. People can travel a little
Well, and I would
further.
say
They
even
can
to-
travel independently.
Today, I mean, we've even seen that a city area is going to be more progressive and more open to change than more area like where we're at, where we're a little more independent. Because like brought up at SEMA, we literally have these tunnels that are purposely built for EV vehicles to move you from place to place. That you could not use internal combustion engine car to do that because you asphyxiate yourself in this tunnel.
Right. The tunnels would be
So-
smogged out at that point.
You have not only have you instituted EV vehicles in a city environment there, you've literally made a huge track just for
and
them.
infrastructure. You've created so you created jobs through boring the tunnels, through
Yes.
maintaining the roads, the
Yes.
surface, but then you've created infrastructure, the tunnel system itself.
But just the simple fact that that was all produced and made because it's in a city environment. We're out in our kind of area, would be hit with more pushback.
Right.
Is what I'm getting at.
And also the population density, the manner in which we would do
Mm-hmm.
it. However, the value of the automotive industry continuing to literally and figuratively move society forward from having these issues, and part of what you were contextualizing was the problems that we didn't even exactly recognize
Yes.
until it was a little too late, until we were 5-6 feet deep of manure.
Correct.
That the automotive industry then allowed the humanity kicking and screaming to start to leave some of the horses and carriages and the problems of that experience dead, 41 horses a day dead or whatever.
Yeah.
We started to move away from that into the automotive world, where we were now able to increase travel. We were able to get further, to explore more areas, to get people out of those row houses,
Yes.
to not be reliant on a chauffeur,
Yep.
to then go out and visit a park and then come back, you know?
Yes.
And as we continue,
And the other thing is, you're never going to make a horse more efficient. It is going to eat what it eats and put out what it puts out and haul so much load a day, and then it was
Other
going to
than-
have a certain amount of lifespan.
Yeah, other than training it to be stronger,
Correct.
the efficiency of it.
It is what it is. Where automobile, obviously, the very first car was very inefficient on everything, and compared to a 2024 JLU, it's very efficient compared
Right.
to.
Now,
So we've been
let's-
able to refine.
Let's
that
talk about that
technology.
efficiency and with engines for a second, because I'm curious on how you want to explain horsepower.
Duck power.
Duck
What-
power.
What are you asking, Jeffrey?
What is it? Is it called horsepower because 300 horsepower would actually equate to 300 horses?
I think just they brought that term up because they were just what they could equate it to at the time. You knew what a
Isn't
well-
that exactly what it is? Isn't there actually
There is a metric for
out
it.
there?
But-
it's how fast a horse can accelerate with a particular load
but
established. to it.
basically, you come from a team of horses and you know what kind of force those can exert on a plow, and you are introducing this automobile, and they have no way of connecting the two. So that's where horsepower comes from. That's how that farmer is then told, well, that is 8 horsepower. That is a team of 8 horses, and it makes it relevant. And we've just continued that term to the point where we don't have a clue what a team of horses will do, but we know that we want 350 horsepower.
This is just so we're all on the same page, and this is just a super quick juggling. It is an equation of foot-pounds moved per minute, is what it comes down to.
Yes.
So it is legitimately the fact that we cannot, and I think that's what's kind of fun about your contextualization is as a society, and I'll be honest, there's a ton of people out there who have never worked with a horse, who never touched a horse, seen a horse. I worked in inner city Pittsburgh. I remember taking youth and young adults who were in their late teens to 20s that had never seen a live horse in their life. And yet they could talk about the horsepower of a vehicle
Yes.
or of a piece of equipment they were using
Yes.
or whatever it might be.
But had no understanding of the relationship
But
to
had
horses.
no understanding of the relationship to horses. And so the funny thing is understanding that that was a metric that we were able to conceptualize as a society. And here we are pushing 150 years past.
Yes. That we forgot the original metric.
Right, the original metric of how that horse, or the significance of the fact that
Yes.
that
The
physical live horse.
the whole point I was making about the horsepower conversation, though, is that it is not 300 horsepower does not mean 300 horses can pull it at the same speed and power.
Yes.
It's not the exact equation.
Yeah, it's
The equation is that foot-pounds that you were
yes.
talking
And
about.
doing work equation.
The workload, but it's
Yeah.
not actually the number of horses that could do it because you can't make horses more efficient, like you said.
Yes.
And I just think it's
It's an average. I'm sure it's as well with horses.
Correct.
Fun or interesting to look at how the automotive community has furthered our ability to do work in society, that the automotive industry has continually helped solve issues for humanity, despite the fact that the large swath of society probably didn't appreciate it in the moment. And I think that if I was to make just a pointed connection to MLK Junior Day, that is exactly it. The idea that, and while no means does the automotive community have the same weight and measures as MLK Junior Day, the idea is the objective to try and do good,
Or improve.
do
Yeah.
better, to be a driving force that despite what else is going on in the world, that we can continue to kind of
Yeah.
keep our eyes set on refinement and forward progress and trying to do better every day.
So in conclusion, if you're lost in all the pounds of manure, we had no idea of what kind of struggles that humanity had 100 years ago in a city environment with this many horses. I had not a clue when I started researching this, and I've been in the cars my whole life, and I had no idea about any of this kind of stuff with the horse side. So we were looked at as we had this huge environmental problem, which we can identify now. I believe we've come full circle almost. We had a huge infrastructure with this environment that had to change, and we saw a great increase in a bunch of facets of this community and environment from transitioning from one known thing to a different known thing.
Right, from moving from the horses and wagons and transitioning into automobiles, and as
Yes.
automobiles transition and opened up opportunity, we reach kind of a peak of utilization, and we
And we were
continue to
Kind of
transition.
able to transition, and the biggest thing I think the takeaway from it is we're able to continually improve an automobile and make it better each year. As a new model year comes out, there's improvements over the last one, where even with breeding horses, I don't think you were ever going to reach this kind of height of innovation that we have had with the car. So if nothing else, if that's your takeaway, is that the car is something that you can continually improve and change, where a horse, you were stuck in this one track. This is what you did. This is what you got out of it. That's what you put into it.
Unless you did tether up 300 horses together, I
And
suppose.
even then, you're still not getting, because the max speed of a horse is the max speed of the horse.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if you've got 300 pulling; they're still maxed
What
out.
was crazy though is some of this talk was that you literally had a team of 12 horses to pull like a bus, which is crazy. Because now think about all those metrics we just talked about of how much food and manure and all that kind of stuff. Now you have 12
Sure.
in one location to pull a bus.
Right.
Comparative, we all sit back and go, oh, that's diesel motor on that bus is stinky. I'll take the diesel truck motor. Thank you.
Well, and I will be interested to see as we move forward to have the EV buses moving
Yes.
forward and the immediate
And again,
torque base.
I think
Darla said horses are like Jeeps that are money pits.
that's true. But that's again, I think we'll see that improvement in the city environments with the EV buses and that kind of stuff. And it won't really affect us enthusiasts out here in not the city environment.
Right.
So you don't need to be threatened by this change. It's a natural progression. It's a natural improvement.
Right.
But we're going to see the most difference in those urban city environments that are honestly most needed, because we do have smog and we do have
Environmental hazards.
and of course, just like anything, as you change, you're going to have other ones that are going to take the place of what you're currently dealt with. We just have to continually try to improve those processes.
Right,
And,
continuing having an open mindset and being open to growth and change through the process.
and what other thing I kind of took away from this is we still have horses, we still have stables, we still have people into horses. Still
Right, they
ride.
never actually went away.
They never
You know what I
completely
mean?
went away, and so I can kind of identify.
Yes, but is there a group of people that are going, I want to cross country road trip the U.S. on a horse?
No.
I think there is.
I think there is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think they still do.
You're probably right.
I know they. I mean, I know they do.
You
and
are
I-
probably right, because I don't remember exactly when. There was a certain date, but they literally took a whole track of Model A's and they went from coast to coast.
Right, and I think that's what's beautiful about the human experience is that, that we will likely still be able to do that as the infrastructure changes, as the vision and the vessel moves us forward in society, as we become better at just us. That we're not going to eliminate those things. We still have carriage houses. We still have the equestrian folks, and I think that there are still people who try to do cross country or these extreme travel, whether it be bicycle, whether it be horse, whether it be a cannonball run in a Mercedes car. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that as we continue to move forward as the bell curve, the swath of society, we can still appreciate where we've come from.
100%.
But also that where we've come from also gives us perspective on where we're going.
100%.
I think that's valuable.
In the comments, Roy's saying, good morning. My Jeep also broke at BFR on New Year's Eve, so apparently he caught the YouTube.
You know what, Roy? I don't know. I still haven't figured it out yet. I haven't spent enough time.
He's got
but we'll
fighting to do.
Yeah, we'll be unpacking that for our next YouTube video, so you'll want to tune in for that.
But just on topic real quick too, with the advancements of technology in the vehicles and the new problems that come out. Did you guys see the video circulating about Tesla and what happens in the winter?
No.
That your range decreases a huge amount.
No, not even that. Think about your door handles and your windows when they freeze over.
Yes.
How do you get into a Tesla?
The door handles pop out.
Not when it's frozen over.
Yes. I have seen that.
They're literally pounding at their door handle like you would a window to get the window to roll down. They're pounding at the door handle just trying to access the door handle and breaking away chunks of ice to get into their vehicle.
Yep.
Interesting. I mean, with any forward progress, there's going to
There's
be some
challenges.
challenges, and you learn stuff each and every time. And of course,
Absolutely.
we ran into when we stopped using steel door handles and we
Yeah.
went to a plastic door handle. I
Same
remember
argument could be
same
said.
argument was made at that time, and that
Yeah.
plastic door handle, the pieces were breaking in it, and that's the problem. That's I don't want to exactly say problem, but the short-sighted nature of the human experience bothers me often because listen, that's not a new problem with the Teslas. That's an old problem. It's a human issue. We ran into it with plastic door handles in the 80s
Yeah.
on these import cars that were coming from more tropical environments. They weren't planning for, somebody in Wisconsin to be driving this Suzuki or whatever it was.
Well, and think about where Teslas are mostly tested at. It's
Yeah.
California.
Sure.
They're not expecting our kind of weather, Minnesota weather.
And ultimately, as we as humans, changed in the automotive community, you went from being, a horse keeper and carriage house keeper and a driver and all that kind of stuff. That there are, if you're one of the initial people to the scene of the new age, you're beta testing.
Yes.
You talk about that horse situation. It probably wasn't until the 50s or 60s that we had mass transit happening with the car.
Yeah.
So that's 50 years of beta testing as far as I'm concerned.
100%.
Whereas the whole reason that Jeeps were so impactful coming out of World War II, basically, was that there was bajillion of them made, and they were just consumable. They're disposable.
Yes.
And so you just, when a part broke, you just swapped another part onto
and
it.
We have transitioned so far from, back in the 1900s, a Jeep would have been ideal because of the road conditions.
Sure.
But we had improved the road conditions. We had improved the city street driving so much that we almost made the car not ideal for going out in the muck and the mire and the back 40.
Sure.
So that's where the horses kind of still made sense,
Mm-hmm.
and still to this day sort of still do for really rough stuff.
Sure.
But then the Jeep came onto the scene and was able to go back in the back 40 and go where it needed to go
And
pull
reconnect people back with, nature in that sense.
100%.
And then the highway system started to become developed over the next 50 years, and people really got to get out and camp and see the country and expose themselves to broader audiences and experiences. So it's interesting to see the as time marches forward and as we change and appreciate what the automotive community has done for us as a whole. So to continue moving forward ourselves, to wrap this up, we had a couple gifts come on site while we were here. I'm going to take a moment. Big shout out to Jason, who went adventuring himself, went on a car excursion this past weekend and drove across the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we have all of these. We have a handy clamp. I don't even know what these goodies are. This is.
So the handy clamp looks like it's designed for extending your reach on bolts.
It says holds nuts and bolts 1/8 to 3/4 inch, and holds nuts from turning. Seems like that would be of value. Compresses gas line and hose clamps. That looks fun.
Oh.
Seems like that'd be valuable instead of like flag nuts in the inside frame rails of Jeeps. And then drill bit guide, the V-drill guide. Ooh, look at that thing, Scott. You're going to love that.
Ooh.
Look how solid that piece is. It's kind of like about 5-6 inches long.
I think that's the best part is if you need to drill on the edge of a piece. So say you have an edge and you need to drill down through the top of that edge. So the edge of like a pyramid.
Yes.
And you need to drill on that edge. This has a cutout that will fit over that edge, and then you can drill through the guide and into the edge and not have it walk off.
Yeah, that's a nice solid piece of machined steel. Big Gator tools.
No, you need it
V-drill.
until you see it kind of scenario.
Right,
It's,
right.
Yeah, it's just a big billet of steel is what it is,
That's cool.
with pre-drilled holes and probably done on a CNC or laser type machine.
Yeah.
Right, back to that.
circle.
And then, we have the thread pitch guide. Actually, I've had a set of these before. We cobbed up the threads. I think we were having some teenagers help sort out the nuts and bolts bin we have here. But These are a great tool.
Oh, 100%.
Every garage should have something of this type, and basically it lets you figure out exactly what thread pitch you have.
Yes,
And,
especially when Jeep has an odd size and odd.
Or you're
thread.
working on a couple different eras of Jeeps, right?
Yeah.
Where we go from this conglomerate of the 70s and 80s.
Just
and
because
then-
it's fresh in my brain, it is amazing to me how many standard SAE bolts are still on a TJ. Just putting that out there.
That's exactly. I think that's exactly the truth. And then we move full metric.
yeah.
In the JKJL era, but
Yeah.
not even because, like, say the JK has a half 20 thread pitch on the lug nuts.
Yep.
It's not until we're in the JL where I feel like
Where
it's
it's
fully
fully
metric.
metric.
I wonder what this is actually composed of, because it's heavy.
The
It's
V
very
belt-
solid.
The drill bit guide is what you're looking
Yeah.
at.
It has to be something pretty tough so it doesn't.
I mean,
drill bit doesn't eat
somebody
into
like Scott could keep this in their vehicle as a self-defense weapon too.
I'd use that as a toe strap.
Oh, jeez.
I appreciate Jason bringing this stuff in, sharing this stuff from from his car adventures over the weekend. A drill bit guide was as seen on TV sales.
Oh.
Whoa, we're real fancy these days.
I'll be juggling that later, see how much and where I can get one.
Folks, I hope that this MLK Junior Day brings you lots of good works and blessings. I hope you go out, do something positive in your community, for your family, for yourself, move society forward as a whole. If you're in the cold, we hope that you stay warm. If you're warm, we'd love to share some of this cold with you.
Yes.
So, feel free to
I
reach
think
out
most
to
of
us.
the U.S. is under this deep freeze
Most
right now.
of the U.S. is likely under this deep freeze. A lot of
Yeah.
crazy stuff happening.
So over the weekend, real quick, it was -1 degree here Sunday. It was -6 in Texas,
Oh, okay.
where
That
my
was-
in-laws
Puts it in
are at.
perspective.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating? It's been an adventure. We've got Jeeps to build, lots of things to get done. You can reach out to us via email or Facebook Messenger, our text-only number. You can email Jeffrey, our producer, JEFF, letter C, at SFJ4x4, so that's 4x4.com, or text us on our text-only number, 440-855-2100. If you're out adventuring today, stay warm, stay safe. Hopefully your vehicle is in tip-top condition, taking you to that next activity and adventure in your life.
And that last message from Chuck: if you're cold, your Jeep is cold. Bring them inside.
Jeep on.
Keep on.
Jeep on.